That's DB. I'm Ravi here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Make sure you get out to the casino in Omaha every Saturday this month for your chance to win $10,000 at 10:30 p.m. or from 6 to 10, you can win $500 of free slot play every half hour. Go check out warhorse.com for more information. All the house rules. You know, there's a bunch of details and stuff you got to get. Details are important. Nuance is important. Context is important.
For some.
Not being a dumbass on the internet's important, but we just ignore that all the time, too. It's fine. It's all good.
You got a segment.
We like to talk about, sports on here sometimes, and I like to talk about the NFL. Can we talk about the NFL?
Sure, of this game. Ooh.
I don't know what to do with this Broncos Saints game, if I'm being honest with you.
Who's playing for the Saints?
That's part of the reason I don't know what to do with it.
No Shaheed, no Olave, no Carr.
And Broncos are still just -3.
Yeah, I know.
That's a stinky, stinky line.
Okay, so was that you that gave me the 566 in 564 where something had been done 566 times? Was that DeMarinis?
I think it was DeMarinis. I don't think it was me. That sounds like a DeMarinis stat.
No, so I need to go back and find it. But Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he mentioned both of us, I think. There had been 566 people who have attempted at least 100 passes since 2007.
Yeah.
And Bo Nix is like 564th in whatever metric this was. I think QBR, measuring their quality. Deshaun Watson was dead last.
566.
Yeah, he was dead last. 566 out of 566. Bo Nix just 2 spots ahead of him.
And I think the thing about that stat was those guys are pretty recent for the amount of time that this stat had been being tracked.
That's a pretty large sample size at this point, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Everybody was it doesn't. I mean, 100 passes is what, 3 games tops for most people, about 3 games.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good sample size for all these different quarterbacks, and yet we're sitting here and we still don't. I don't know what to do with the Broncos at all.
TK said bet the under.
It's 37.5. It's getting pretty low.
That's low.
But I if I'm betting anything here, it probably is the under.
What kind of number is this going to draw?
In terms of viewers?
Yeah. Because, what are you up against? You're up against Georgia State and Marshall?
Yeah, Georgia State, Marshall.
And BC and Vatek?
BC Vatek is probably the one that interests me the most out of those 3 games. But I'm not going to pretend like any of them are real barn burners.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe we're just resigned. Unless you get like the random good conference game.
Mm-hmm. On Thursdays?
I just don't know if you're going to get super high quality.
It might be – weirdly, the Friday college games have been way better.
Yeah, we get your boys tomorrow, right?
Yes.
And Oregon is tomorrow.
Oregon's tomorrow.
But they're at Purdue.
And then there's another good one.
So I wouldn't necessarily call that.
No, but you've got Oklahoma State BYU tomorrow, which I'm interested in.
Yeah, because I think –
I don't know what to do with Oklahoma State yet.
Well, you could figure out a ton about BYU.
And I like BYU. Big Kalani Sitake guy here.
That's laying the 9?
I don't know if I'm laying the 9. I'm interested in watching because I do think, despite the record, I think this is one of the better opportunities for BYU to kind of show who they are so far on the season.
National television.
I don't know that a lot of people that aren't paying real close attention
know that they're undefeated.
Know that they're 13th in the country. I mean, this is a team that is in the Big 12 and on the doorstep of a college football playoff opportunity halfway through the season. I thought that Kansas State game was really impressive. I thought the at SMU was maybe their best win of the season. That's a good SMU team.
You think SMU settled in on Jenkins? Obviously the quarterback spot, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
He's been just way better. I don't think there's a lot of going back and forth on that anymore. But I think this is a good opportunity I think that Kansas State was a night game, so maybe I think people saw that a little bit. This is a good opportunity for BYU at a point where they're high enough in the rankings, people should be paying attention, because I think they were unranked in that Kansas State game. So I don't know how much people were paying attention to it.
That or low mid-20s.
Yeah, they weren't. It wasn't the I don't think it was a marquee matchup at the time for most people. This Oklahoma State BYU game is probably my favorite pre-Saturday game of the weekend. But I do have a weird BYU affinity too. So
yeah, which started early.
It's been years. Legitimately, it's been years. I've liked Kalani Sitake for a long time.
Well, what is he only going into? What is this, year 4? Were you a Bronco Mendenhall guy?
I think he's been there longer than 4 years now.
It seems like only 4.
He's been there.
Was it COVID? Was it pre-COVID?
I think so. He's been there.
So Bronco's been at UVA for how? I don't.
Well, Bronco's gone now.
No, I know.
But he'd been gone from UVA, I think, for 3 years now.
So that probably makes Sitake maybe 6 years?
He's been there since 16.
8.
He's been there since 2016.
Doesn't seem that long.
And I was a Mendenhall guy, though. I thought he was a really good coach. But
yeah, I remember his name coming up in 16.
Yeah. I thought that would have been a really nice choice for Nebraska.
What was the knock? He was too old? I can't remember.
I don't remember what the knock was on him because he wasn't that old at the time.
No, I know.
In 16, he wouldn't have been. But I think the really good Sitake year was 2020. They went 11-1. Because that's the Zach Wilson year.
I knew there was something about
the COVID year. Yeah, that was his breakout year because he had a couple 7-6s before that, and then he kind of took off the next 2 years.
What's been his worst year?
Second year he was 4-9 in 2017. Second worst after that was last year when they were 5-7. But other than that, he's had a winning record every year, made a bowl game every year. We're a big Kalani Sitake guy. Yeah. I also like the way he kind of puts his program, puts the team together. They're often really, really good on the lines. They play like a pretty physical style of football, despite the fact that they've had some, especially with Zach Wilson, they had some explosive offenses there. I just like they kind of remind me there's a little bit of Utah to them.
What did you say the Texas-Georgia line crept to 5?
-5 for Texas.
Jeez.
Are you too high on it? You think too high?
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Although my man Husker X's and O's says analytics hate
Georgia in this spot.
Hate Georgia.
I saw some analytics had them up like almost double digits. With what like the predictive scores were on this one. I saw close to 10.5 on some of these analytics, which I think is nuts. That's a high number. That's a big number. I understand how Vegas is putting it a little bit higher because of the perception of how Georgia's been playing. I don't really understand how the analytics come up with a double-digit game in this one.
In the chat, does anyone think 27.5? So the funny thing about this game for Oregon, 27.5 is too high. It seemed too low.
For against Purdue?
Yeah.
So the only reason I wouldn't say it seems
let down.
Well, the only reason I wouldn't say it seems too low is we haven't really seen Oregon put it on bad teams this year, right? Like they're not blowing teams out in the same way.
Especially since the offensive and QB change. OC.
Yes, like we haven't seen them. There's a lot of I don't remember the scores, but like 41-13s, like somewhere in that range when you're playing bad teams. Because I remember the narrative early in the season was, hey, is Oregon that good? They're having a hard time getting going. Yeah. And then obviously they got the good win against Ohio State that kind of alleviates some of that. But I don't think that we look at this team as hey, they're just going to blow the doors off people. They're going to win. They're going to win comfortably. But you get more than 3-4 touchdowns, I think it gets a little dicey about them covering.
20. I looked at it and I was like, well, what would I have made that? Probably like 34.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't think
it is a quick emotional turnaround though for Purdue.
Yes.
And it was a physical game.
Yeah. That's a.
I mean, he might be. I don't want to assume he may be onto something. 27.5 for.
How do you think that number is being factored into Purdue dropping 46 in the second half? Like, do you think that's being considered at all?
Like maybe they
can score a little better. Like maybe they can keep up a little bit longer.
I'd have to see what their team total was, but yeah, that I could see that
because that's kind of where my head went. Besides the Oregon part, is maybe there's some recency bias there of, oh man, Purdue just put up a ton of second half points against a team that I think most people think is still pretty decent in Illinois.
Okay, so they're assuming Purdue's going to score because the total is 61.
Yeah, so they're thinking they're going to score.
Just 44-17.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get,
I think somewhere
42-14.
44-17 gets you 27 points and your total.
Huh.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
They think Purdue's going to score.
And 44-17, like, that's getting your butt kicked, but it's not going to cover 35, right?
And it include a couple of 2-point conversions.
Yeah. Or, maybe some missed kicks here or there. You never know.
Safety.
Oregon's missed some extra points this year, too, so you got to watch out. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Make sure you get to warhorse.casino.com for more info. We'll wrap up the show coming up next.